Have you ever had one of those workouts where you know you've worked hard? You hit your goals or you put in a good effort and felt great for doing so, only to feel absolutely dreadful in the hour or two afterwards, and actually out of proportion for the exercise that you did? Well, then you might be a salty sweater. So let's go through that and some of the other ways to tell whether you're one of those people who just sweat buckets of salt. I'll also give you some tips on what you can do about this if you are. So hey nutrition nerds, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, then hey, my name's James. I'm a sport and exercise nutritionist and spend a lot of my time talking about those things. That scenario that I talked about at the start is 100% me, by the way. I can have some workouts where if I don't rehydrate properly in the hour or two following the workout, I feel dreadful, like sick, headachy, just gross. So that is actually telltale sign number one that you might be a salty sweater, feeling disproportionately unwell after sweaty exercise. Another telltale sign to look out for is what type of foods that you want to eat. Suddenly have a craving for some crisps or salty pretzels. Well, that might be because you're a salty sweater and your body is just craving salt. Your body is pretty clever and generally it knows what it needs. If you do a sweaty session and afterwards you just have a real desire for salty foods, that's probably your body's way of saying, give me some salt, because you've just sweated so much of it out. If you get muscle cramps during a prolonged sweaty session, then this might be another sign that you are a salty sweater. When we talk about salt here, by the way, we are specifically thinking about an electrolyte called sodium. Sodium is absolutely vital to loads of different processes in our body, including nerve conduction and proper muscle contraction. If you sweat out a load of sodium during exercise and don't replace it, then you might end up with muscle cramps because your body can't properly control its muscle contractions. Truth be told here, there is a lot that we don't know about muscle cramps, but whether you're a salty sweater is worth considering if you are someone who regularly suffers with muscle cramps and you're not specifically keeping on top of your sodium during exercise. The classic salt mark on clothing. It's hard to miss, especially if you wear dark clothing. If you see this kind of staining on clothing, then it's quite likely that you are a salty sweater. Some people will have really clear crystals on their clothing after exercise. A little bit gross, but also really cool that your body is actually producing that when it sweats. Now, dizziness is an important one and it does require a little bit of explanation. Firstly, water makes up a large proportion of our blood and it contributes to what's called our blood volume. When we sweat, we lose water along with salt, which means that relatively our blood volume will decrease as well because we lose some of that water content from it. If you're getting excessively dizzy after intense or sweaty exercise, then this might be because you are losing a lot of sweat and that's salt and water during your exercise, so it is important to replace it afterwards. However, it is important to say that there are lots of other causes for dizziness, so if this is something that is persistent or particularly troublesome, then make sure that you do speak to your family doctor about it. Lastly, if your eyes start to sting when you sweat during exercise, or you have any cuts or scrapes and they sting like mad, then it's probably a good indicator that you are a salty sweater. Imagine a cut on your body and you're just pouring some table salt on it. That's essentially what's happening and why it hurts so much if you are a salty sweater. So that's it for as far as ways to tell if you're a salty sweater. Did you find that any of these relate to you? If they do and you are a salty sweater like me, then let me know in the comments. So for advice if you are a salty sweater, I have done a full video on hydration if you're interested, but as a starting point for this video, it's worth focusing on sport-specific electrolyte supplements or replacements. This might be something like a sports drink or tablet that you can dissolve in fluid, and there's loads of different ones out there that you can choose from. If you are an athlete, by the way, who may get drugs tested, then I would strongly advise that you watch my video on supplement guidance for athletes just in case. But the advice is to use a supplement that contains at least 250 milligrams of sodium per 500 milliliters of fluid. And that works out to at least 500 milligrams of sodium per liter of fluid. If you are a salty sweater, then you might actually need to go up to about 1,500 milligrams of sodium per litre of fluid. But that depends on your exercise intensity and duration. A good starting point for fluid intake is about 500 millilitres of fluid per hour of exercise, but this is individual and it can take some trial and error to find out what really works for you. It's also important to keep drinking and consider your hydration in the hours after exercise because you do continue to sweat afterwards. Check in with yourself to see how you feel after exercise and keep an eye on things like your urine output. These are all things that will give you some insight into how much you sweat and perhaps how much sodium you sweat and how well you are replacing those things during and after exercise. Now, sports supplements will usually put the amount of sodium that they contain on it, but other times they will just say salt and it can be a bit confusing. The classic salt that they put on food packaging is sodium chloride, and this is actually just table salt. The salt as we know it is made up of about 40% sodium and 60% chloride, which means you can actually work out how much sodium is in any sort of food or supplement if it says salt. For example, if it says it contains 1 gram of salt, then you multiply 1 gram by 0.4, which is 400 milligrams. So that's 400 milligrams of sodium, which then means you can work out the amount of sodium in any food or drink that you buy to help you on your quest as a salty sweater. So that is it for today's video. I hope you found it useful and I hope you enjoyed it. I would really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, then please do click subscribe. Make sure that you press the notification icon to get alerted when I release a new video. And remember, it is free to subscribe. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. See ya.